So, the theme is back to basics, and that makes me think of school.
Oh no.
And what's the most famous school?
Oh no.
Besides Sandy Hook. I'm talking fictitious schools.
Hogwarts!
Wayside, yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
What's that?
People in the human realm, Bayside. Yes.
That was Saved by the Bell?
Bayside, from Saved by the Bell, yes. Oh, my battery's low, so I'm gonna start reading. This story, it's hot up here. This story is called Fooled by the Bell.
Yes! Oh no.
Fooled by the Bell.
It's gonna ruin it for you.
Zach knew it wouldn't be long for Slater to plop down on his tree limb. He called Slater and told him they had a test tomorrow, but Slater sounded anxious and worried on the phone. Zach listened to a little music and Slater showed up in his window. Slater saw something hiding under Zach's covers, entered his window with caution and said, "Who is that?" He set his heavy backpack down on the ledge like it was nothing. Zach's quick tongue was ready and said, "It's supposed to be you." "Me?" Slater gave the lump a better inspection and saw the curly brown hair poking up from the head. The head was bigger than his and the hair was wilder than his. He ran his adventurous hand up the thick body, squeezed. Laughed and said, "Why do you have me in your bed? Secret crush?" "No, gross." Zach shivered and said, "Kelly is coming over to study with me. The dummy in my bed is just another trick I'm planning for tonight. It's still April Fool's Day, you know." "It looks nothing like me. Get out of here." Zach heaved to lift Slater's backpack and said, "Kelly will be here soon." "I came all this way, let me do it. That looks nothing like me." Slater was persistent. "Well, okay." Zach watched Slater grope and disassemble the flimsy replica of himself. Slater lifted the covers and asked, "Is she on her way?" "Yeah, get in there." Slater climbed into Zach's bed and said, "Your bed is huge." Zach flopped onto the bed and casually said, "Yeah, it's pretty big." He got under the covers with Slater, took his shirt off and commanded, "Take your shirt off." Their shirts sat on each side of the bed and Slater questioned, "Kelly will see our shirts but not our pants?" Zach looked over at Slater and said, "I guess we should take our pants off too." They slid their pants off under the covers and tossed them into the floor as well. Zach looked back over and asked, "Did you take your underwear off?" "Did you?" "No, I didn't wear any." Zach was puzzled and asked, "You came over to study without wearing underwear?" "I wasn't planning on taking off my pants, Preppy." Slater laughed and said, "Just leave yours on." Zach slid his underwear off, tossed it by his door, and said, "Kelly has to see at least one pair of underwear, yeesh." "Then stay on that side of the bed." Zach had other plans and said, "You're on the side I sleep on." "You mean our bodies are going to touch?" Slater's cock hardened, and it lifted the covers. Slater saw Zach's eyes see his erection develop and rise. He blushed and said, "It's been a really long day." Zach watched Slater's hand go under the cover and said, "Don't!" Zach's cock also erected and lifted the covers like Slater's cock. Zach felt sensations cascade across his skin and his cock shook as he saw Slater's cockhead point up in Slater's hand. "Zach, if Kelly finds us with erections, we'll be ruined at school." "You're right. We have to get rid of them." Zach's brain started turning and he said, "Think about Belding. Think about Belding." "Mr. Belding?" "Yeah, he's old and hairy. He's pale and hokey too." Zach smiled and admitted, "He's funny sometimes." "It's not working, Preppy." Slater brought attention to the fact that their erections were still noticeably under the sheets. Slater put his hands behind his head like Zach had his hands. "Well, imagine Mr. Belding without any clothes on." "That might work." Slater thought about Mr. Belding's hulking body and realized he wasn't all made of fat. His legs and arms weren't so bad. His gut was disgusting, but his chest wasn't terribly bad. Slater found his hand stroking his cock and said, "His legs aren't bad." "Yeah, but I bet his butt is." Zach saw Slater stroking with his eyes shut. He pulled Slater's stroking arm, which caused Slater to stop. "I'm sorry." Slater spoke before Zach moved his stroking arm to his side of the bed. Slater's eyes bugged out when his fingers flexed around Zach's wet erection. His hand jerked Zach's slippery cock and Slater asked, "Have you been swimming?" "No!" Zach pulled the covers back as Slater stroked him and gazed upon his glazed cockhead like it was royalty, and it was indeed. Zach's moist cock made Slater's hand slide with ease. Slater pulled back the covers and exposed his dry erection to Zach. Zach reached for Slater, found him dry, and said, "I didn't expect this to happen." Slater gulped as Zach bent over and gulped down his cockhead and shaft. Yes. This was his first time getting head, and it was from Zach Morris. Zach Morris! Slater put his hand in Zach's immaculate hair and shoved his cock. But Zach held Slater's cock and focused Slater's slams. "Come here, Preppy." Slater tried tearing Zach away from his cock, but Zach held on to him and turned his body so his curved cock could collide with Slater's crinkled chin. Slater opened his mouth, pulled Zach's right leg around, and sucked Zach's cock as Zach sprawled across him and sucked his cock. Zach spread his legs as Slater's hands felt his two firm footballs ready for the game. A wide receiver passed Zach's scrimmage line, but Zach barely noticed the finger inside him. He wanted his hole filled and moved to put Slater's stout cock in him. How do wrestling matches begin again? Slater got behind Zach as Zach kissed the headboard. Slater whispered, "What about Kelly?" He wanted to lick Zach's ear and licked it. Zach pushed his ass back and Slater's cock hit center but bounced up. Zach reached behind him, held Slater's justifiable erection and sheathed it. Slater held Zach's sides as Zach grabbed the headboard and ached. He stared at his wall, but darkness was all he wanted and Slater's cock saw it all. The pain melted and Slater's thrust became loving. Slater was parched and said, "Kiss me, Zach." Zach turned, looked into Slater's face as Slater's cock pleasurably grazed and nipped, and Zach tongued an awaiting man. Slater sucked the moisture from his face as his cock reached a precipice, but Slater was having too much fun for it to climax now. Their athletic tongues went down every hall and in every classroom Bayside had to offer. Groaned, jerked his neck away, and said, "Kelly." He peered off, not wanting Slater's vicious sack to stop smacking his taint, and gusty winds passed his sack, but her name rolls off the tongue quicker than warm semen. "Oh, Zach." Slater held him close. "Slater, don't stop." Slater pulled him away some. His cockhead and 4 inches were still inside, and said, "Here, rest on the bed." Zach felt Slater's rigid cock travel through his tunnel and exit, but Slater's cockhead was like a dog's head stuck in a fence. Zach got on his back and Slater lifted Zach's fuzzy legs and said, "I'll be quick." Zach fell down Slater's architectural chest and said, "No, not too quickly." His hand stroked his cock as Slater slid his cock into Zach and held his legs up. Zach was a runner with stamina, but the notion that Kelly would arrive gave Slater haste, and Zach April Fool's Day amusement. Slater rested Zach's listless legs onto his broad shoulders, plucking Zach's tanned nipples and causing him agony. Zach used Slater's shoulders to pulverize him with his condensed asshole. Slater lifted Zach a little more upside down and bludgeoned him with his cock. But he didn't expect Zach to shoot his load down into his mouth. It sweetened and dissolved in Zach's mouth like rock candy, but instead it was Zoc candy. Zach. Slater watched Zach's flashy foam caress his lips. Zach swallowed what landed on his tongue and around his mouth as Slater bolted inside Zach and said, "I can't hold it!" Zach swallowed and tasted his cum, but unfortunately, an asshole doesn't have taste buds as well. Zach felt Slater's cock ravish and regurgitate until Slater put him down. But Zach was worried about leaking onto his sheets, flipped over onto his stomach and said, "Could you grab me some tissues?" Slater was right there as groups of his seamen departed Zach and said, "It doesn't look as disgusting as it sounds." Slater fingered the growing ooze monster and ate it. As Zach pooted out more. It didn't look poopy at all, but Slater wanted to taste his cum, and it didn't taste bad by any means. Slater dove in like hooch to a full bowl. Full bowl of food. Ah! Zach picked a pillow and held it, as Slater devoured his descendants. Zach had never felt such ecstasy in all his life. He gripped the pillow and attempted to find an equal occurrence, but he could not. He tried to think of any moment with Kelly that could compare, and involuntarily said her name again. "Is she here?" Slater said it with a mouthful of something. He was either one of Pavlov's dogs or simply a gusher. But he hopped up and looked for tissues. "No, Slater, wait." Slater brought a box of tissues to Zach as Zach tore tissues out and wiped his wispy hole. He looked down Slater's body and said, "Kelly isn't coming. April Fools!" "You didn't fool me," Slater recovered. "I did too." Slater knew Zach had got him good, but that got lost in giggling and cleaning the semen from their bodies. Slater didn't bother finding his clothes, hopped into Zach's bed and said, "Hey, let's have a sleepover." "We can, but stay on your side of the bed this time. I don't think I can take it again until morning." "But wait, that's before school." Slater forgot all about it and said, "I forgot about the test. You have to help me." Slater thought Zach was going to say something, but then when he didn't, Slater said, "If you promise to let me cheat off you during the test, I'll let you put it in me before school." Deal. Zach figured an April Fool's Day joke can be on the actual day or any day at all. He could even get Slater to believe the test was pushed further another day and say April Fool's to him on maybe April the 5th. Either way, Kelly never came, but Zach and Slater rarely came apart.